How are you? Good morning to everyone. Big day. We have some first-timers here. This is your first meeting?
No, you gave me the helmet last
Oh, the
time.
helmet.
Snowmobiling, yes.
Yes. First snowmobile trip, though.
That's good.
We have Mr. Bill Mulrow, Secretary to the Governor. Welcome, sir. We have Mr. Rick Cotton, who is Special Counsel for Interagency Initiatives. We have a familiar face, but a new position, Mary Beth LeBate, who is now Director of the Budget. Howard Zemsky from Western New York, who is now head of ESDC, the mastermind of the Buffalo Billion. Welcome, Howard. Former Assemblyman Karim Kamara is joining us now to run the Office of Faith-Based Initiatives. Where's Karim? There he is.
There he is.
He's a granddad.
Timing is everything. Pleasure. Christine Quinn, who is special advisor to me. Very excited to have Christine. We're going to hear from her today. And John Kelly, who is our new press secretary. Where are you, John? We're going to have a busy day today. It's also going to be the first day of what we call a leaders meeting, where we have a meeting with the legislative leaders, which is going to be the new Speaker of the Assembly. Speaker Carl Hastie is going to be coming in. We'll be meeting with Senator Skello, Senator Klein. We'll be doing that this afternoon just to start the official budget conversation. It's a little early to start leader meetings, but we prefer to start them sooner rather than later. The Assembly and the Senate do something called their one-house budget in a week or so, which is basically their statement of what they think the budget should be. And then we'll go through the reconciliation process, but we'll be starting that conversation later today. So we're excited about that. Excited about all the new faces and a very, very robust agenda. You know, the state government does performs many different functions. We do a lot of focus on economic development, a lot of focus on transportation, a lot of focus on criminal justice. But we also have a healthy debate on just generic social policy ideas and social justice ideas. The progress we made on marriage equality, which Christine Quinn dedicated herself to, among others. That was a beautiful piece of social policy work that made this state a better state and really changed the discussion all across this country. What we've done on gun control with the SAFE Act, sensible gun control, that has made the state safer. And the issue that we're going to be talking about today, I believe, is very much in that orbit. I believe there is pervasive inequality against women. That's what the Women's Equality Act was all about, showing all the different areas where there is pervasive inequality. And you can look at lending, you can look at employment. There is a cultural bias towards inequality of women. I believe that. And it's something that should concern all of us on every level. We've worked very hard to communicate that point. We've been communicating it through the advocacy of the Women's Equality Act. We communicated it politically in terms of the Women's Equality Party. And another issue that I believe, personally, brings up that same inequality is the epidemic of sexual assaults on college campuses across the country. It is probably one of the more base expressions of pure power and highlights inequality in a very graphic and disturbing way. It's real, it's growing. Part of the problem is it doesn't get enough publicity and doesn't get enough discussion. We tend to sweep unpleasant problems under the carpet. We don't want to talk about it. We don't want to talk about domestic violence and how common it is all throughout society. And I think the nation is ill at ease talking about this rash of sexual assault on campuses. We want to therefore do the exact opposite. The national dialogue is not as loud and pronounced as it should be. We want to pronounce it in the state of New York. We started last year with a new policy that SUNY put in place, which really was at the cutting edge of protecting women on college campuses. And Chancellor Zimfer did a fantastic job. She stepped right up to the plate with the board of SUNY. They put it into place in SUNY. And people were saying, well, it's going to be difficult, it's confusing, it's this, it's that. It has been, it's worked remarkably well on SUNY campuses. And we now want to take that experience on SUNY campuses and make that the law of the land. We're protecting women on SUNY campuses. We should protect women on every campus in the state of New York. I also believe that this is the type of issue where if New York steps up and handles this well, you will hear this resonate all across the country, because it's one of the things that makes New York special. And it's one of the uses of the bully pulpit of New York, where we get up and we talk about it like marriage equality. And as soon as you pose the question, there is no answer. Why would you allow young women to be abused on campuses? Why? Why wouldn't you do everything you can to protect them? The question is the answer. Well, maybe it's hard, maybe it's difficult. It's not. We did it on the state university system, which, by the way, is a very large demonstration program of feasibility. So that's on the agenda for the budget. It's on the agenda for the session. We have a proposal. It's one of the things you will be talking about when you are at the editorial boards, et cetera. Congratulations, by the way. You have broken, as a collective, the 100 budget presentation mark all across the state. So if you're feeling tired, you have a right to be. There is a reason for it. But one of the key elements that you'll get questions on is this proposal. So I want you to be fully familiar with what it is, why, what we're doing, because you'll see it will come up. People are interested in this. Their personal experience makes them interested. It resonates with people. So we're going to take a few minutes this morning to go through that. And any questions you have, I want you to be comfortable talking about this issue and advocating for this issue. And with that, we turn it over to, I guess, Madam Chancellor Nancy Zimfer, head, inspiration, and dynamo of the SUNY system, all wrapped in one. Madam Chancellor.
Thank you, Governor. It really is a partnership, so we appreciate your leadership, and that's what's made today possible. So I'm thrilled to be here to provide an update on SUNY's implementation of a uniform sexual assault prevention and response policy. Governor, before I begin, I want to acknowledge that Union College students and representatives from the New York State Coalition Against Sexual Assault have joined us today, I think in the front row. So thank you for your great work and raising awareness about this important issue. Thank you. So SUNY is home away from home for nearly 500,000 students, and it is our job, first and foremost, to provide them with a safe and secure learning environment. So we have always been committed to providing the best tools and resources and services to prevent sexual assault and support students in the event an incident does occur. So I'm pleased to be able to share with you the process we undertook to formulate and implement the policies and to really be the backbone of the governor's new legislation. We are very proud that the governor came to us to be a model for the state. SUNY campuses have long been considered national leaders in the area of sexual assault prevention and response. Our campuses already practice amnesty for victims or bystanders who are under the influence of drugs or alcohol. Most already conduct an annual climate assessment. At least 15 of our campuses have long-standing affirmative consent policies, and our university police and campus public safety officials partner with local law enforcement to ensure that students know all the resources and options available to them. So we welcome this opportunity to take these best practices from across our system to scale by creating a uniform set of policies that would ensure equal protection at every campus. To that end, as the governor noted, he joined our SUNY Board of Trustees at a meeting where they passed a resolution to create these uniform, and I stress uniform, policies. So, as is our wont in the academy, we had charged a task force, Governor, to get this done. And we populated that task force with campus presidents, university police, and community college public safety officers, Title IX coordinators, orientation and judicial affairs directors, counseling center leaders, chief student affairs officers, faculty and students, and external advocacy organizations. I think what that shows you is how many different constituencies it takes to provide a uniform policy on sexual assault prevention. So this working group didn't just meet amongst themselves. They've hosted webinars. They've met with over 50 advocacy groups and reviewed thousands of comments from the SUNY community and the wider public as we drafted our uniform policies. Our system-wide policies are, as a matter of fact, as you would expect given our size and comprehensiveness, the most comprehensive victim-centered set of policies, we believe, of any campus nationwide. So what do they do? What is this uniform policy across the State University of New York? First of all, it defines consent clearly and uniformly across the SUNY system. It is unambiguous, knowing, and voluntary. It put into writing our long-standing amnesty policy that a campus will not charge a bystander or a survivor of sexual assault with a violation of an alcohol or drug use policy if they were under the influence at the time of the incident. It provides a roadmap for an orientation and continuous awareness program to educate our campus communities. It includes a Victim's Bill of Rights, ensuring that survivors will be treated with respect and dignity when disclosing crimes of sexual assault and will be informed of all the resources available to them, both confidential and not. And it makes victims aware of available remedies, including orders of protection, no contact orders, adjudication through campus disciplinary proceedings, and law enforcement. So I'm proud to report today that we've made great progress in educating our campus communities and leadership at the level that is needed for a uniform policy across 64 campuses. We've had training or planned training for our presidents and provosts, our chief academic officers, our human resource officers, our campus attorneys, our athletic directors and staff, the student assembly, which is a great vehicle for informing our students, and we have also established a task force on sexual violence prevention and response, with the primary goal of providing a library of best practices, training templates and materials, as well as state-of-the-art campus climate assessment. We didn't stop there because this takes a lot of work and it's a complex level of players. We have joined with our Commissioner of University Police, Bruce McBride, and he has spearheaded a train-the-trainer preparation for our university police at our 29 state-operated campuses and the public safety officers at our 30 community colleges, which has been completed just this month. Our university police have also been reaching out to local police departments and district attorneys to ensure ongoing community support. So, for example, we've had training sessions on SUNY's policies. They are planned for the police executives at the New York State Chief of Police Conference. Several of our campus-based training sessions have included outside law enforcement agencies. For example, the University Police at Cobleskill included the Cobleskill Police Department and a member of the District Attorney's Office, and a session was held at Geneseo, which included members of the Village Police and the Sheriff's Department. So we welcome the opportunity, Superintendent, to work with you and the State Police as we go forward. Since December, our college councils and community college boards of trustees have been adopting the necessary change to campus codes of conduct, which will take effect in the fall semester. So in our councils and boards, they have an obligation to pass these codes. So imagine that we worked with each and every one of them to get that job done. Many of our campuses have already published updated campus-specific resources and policies on their websites, well ahead of schedule, I might add. Every campus president distributed the Victims' Bill of Rights to all students when they returned to campus in January, this past January, last month, for the spring semester, and each campus will finalize their plan for implementation of the policies and report back to the SUNY Board of Trustees, which initiated the resolution in concert with the governor at the end of March. So managing the work of 64 campuses to get this right and to implement a consistent and uniform policy is really coming to fruition. In the spring semester, our task force and campuses will be working on orientation plans and strategies for ongoing awareness among our students and faculty. We start orienting new students for the fall of 2015 practically today. We'll do it all summer. We needed to have these programs up and running. So we can't wait till freshman orientation, which typically happens in the fall. This will be an ongoing effort, lessons that must be reinforced, and most importantly, requires a change in campus culture, which is hard to measure, but we know is absolutely necessary, and of course that doesn't happen overnight. That's why awareness is so important, as the governor mentioned. So when we set out to create a uniform set of policies for every one of the SUNY campuses, believe it or not, some people were skeptical. They thought this would be onerous, they thought this would be disruptive, and I am incredibly impressed with the way in which our campuses have adapted to the uniformity of the policy, and frankly, I believe that's because they were already very much headed down this road. So to the contrary, this one clear set of guidelines has really helped everyone, and we hope that these guidelines will help colleges and universities across the state as they navigate what is really a very complicated and sensitive policy arena. We've had overwhelming support from our presidents and faculty, staff, and students in raising awareness, and really I'm a proud partner of the governor's in making our campus community safer than ever and empowering our students more than ever before. So I want to thank you, Governor, for the partnership and for the opportunity to share the work that we've accomplished. Of course, we couldn't do this without our partnership with Superintendent of State Police, Joseph D'Amico, and it's my privilege to introduce him to you now.
Well, thank you, Chancellor, and good morning, Governor. The New York State Police, along with our partners in law enforcement, take these crimes very seriously, and we're committed to protecting and safeguarding all New Yorkers, including the students who study on our state's campuses. We're concerned about all campus crime, including sexual assault. By enhancing our partnerships, we'll work to find justice for these victims. It's a victim's right to be able to report an assault, and that their case is investigated to the fullest extent of the law by law enforcement. State police will now be able to take calls direct from victims, in addition to referrals from other law enforcement agencies for crimes that occur on campus, and whenever our resources are requested. And again, victims have a right to seek out resources anytime they want and to report this type of heinous crime. When a victim reports a crime to the state police, we'll receive a referral. We'll notify the appropriate state police troop, and specially trained state police members across the state will be prepared and ready to respond 24 hours a day to these types of calls. We're also working to ensure that all members of the state police are aware of the new provisions of this bill. It's important all victims and survivors know we're available. We're there to provide any assistance to assure a sexual assault victim's rights, to make sure they're protected and that justice is served for the victim. In any troop, we're prepared to start an investigation or to assist any other law enforcement agency with forensic or any investigative or police services. Today, we announced that we're creating a dedicated 24-hour state police hotline to report sexual assault on college campuses. That number is 1-844-845-7269. The New York State Police investigate over 3,000 sexual offenses each year across the state, and some of those occur on New York's colleges. It's important that those victims know you're not alone, and our local law enforcement, including the state police, are here to help. Our members see firsthand the trauma that's caused by this type of violence. Victims should not feel discouraged or embarrassed when reporting a crime. And while we know the difficulty and courage it takes to come forward, reporting is important. It's important for the victim. It's important for law enforcement. It helps us to fully investigate and prosecute and find justice for the victims. So for any emergency or for life and death, call 911, or else reach out to campus security, campus police, local law enforcement, and now the New York State Police. And remember the additional resource available to you, a dedicated hotline. It's 1-844-845-7269. We'll be there. We'll be there to answer your call. We'll be there 24 hours a day. Now it's my pleasure to be able to introduce Christine Quinn, Special Advisor to the Governor.
Thank you very much, Superintendent. I also want to thank you very much, Chancellor Ziffer, but most importantly, I want to thank the Governor for launching this important initiative. And as we've heard, both what we've done at SUNY and what is happening with the state police is unprecedented progress. But the truth is that the vast majority of students in New York go to private colleges and universities, which is why we have to take the progress of SUNY and bring it to our private colleges and universities. There's a sad fact, and one we're not proud of, but New York has more schools being investigated for sexual assault than any other state in the nation. That's unacceptable. And the majority of those schools are private institutions. So what we're doing with this policy, in addition to what we've already heard, is we are bearing witness to what has happened to these men and women on college campuses. We're making sure voices of victims and survivors are in fact embedded in the law of New York State, which makes an enormous difference because, as we all know, unfortunately, victims all too often feel re-victimized when what happened to them is questioned and denied or brushed under the rug, as the governor said, which is why it's so important that Governor Cuomo has proposed very clearly and specifically that when our efforts are done, all of the private colleges and universities in the state of New York will have to adopt the SUNY model to protect students, to make colleges safe spaces, and to end sexual violence on our college campuses. And part of that will be the hotline that the superintendent mentioned. Part of that is the affirmative consent that the chancellor mentioned, but a very important part of it I want to add and underscore is the climate survey that will occur. Many private colleges and universities to date have done climate surveys, and they survey the faculty and the administrators. Not an accurate portrayal of what is happening. We will include the voices of students, and that will make an enormous, enormous difference out there. We're going to make sure, and this is critical in what happened at SUNY, you need to have one standard, because when you're the victim of a rape or sexual assault, it is a traumatic and confusing time. And to not be very clear statewide with one system works against victims out there. We are going to change that. This past summer, when I was working with the Lieutenant Governor and others on the campaign, we traveled across the state and talked to young women. I can't tell you the relief we saw in their eyes when they heard that the governor of the state of New York was concerned. And in fact, now I'm doing work with some college students in other parts of the country, particularly in Massachusetts. And when they hear that the governor of a state, the governor of New York, which I tell them all is the best state, is interested and concerned and going to make it right in New York, Governor, it gives them hope that they will get that someday on their campuses, even if they are outside of the state of New York. And that's why we're not just making a proposal here for the 1.2 million college students in New York. We're going to make sure we get it done. And we're going to get it done by launching a statewide campaign today. A statewide campaign that makes sure in law New York has a model that is the best model, that represents the voices of students and survivors and service providers to make our colleges safe. And as part of this Enough is Enough campaign, the Lieutenant Governor is going to bust that 100 number and travel across the state to college campuses and engage in dialogues with students and administrators and faculty members and survivors and service providers to make sure they have the opportunity to be part of the Enough is Enough campaign, but also to make sure survivors know that their voice has been heard in the capital of the state of New York, and we're going to take steps to fix the situation and work with them. And as part of the Lieutenant Governor's efforts in the campaign, we're also launching a website where folks can go to become part of this campaign. That's ny.gov/enough is enough, because we want to make sure everybody in the state of New York, whether they are a college student, were a college student, want to become a college student, weren't a college student, have an opportunity to make their voice clear that college students in the state of New York have a right to have a safe space, and that if it isn't a safe space, they have the right to get justice and get services. And as also part of this effort in addition to the website, we are also making sure the voices of the survivors we're talking about are heard personally. And we're releasing a video today, and there will be more in the future, to get the Enough is Enough campaign message across the state, with the goal we will achieve of getting this into law, making New York yet again a leader, and then I believe very quickly we will see 49 other states rush yet again to catch up with New York in our effort to bring more justice and more equality to the state of New York. So I just want to thank the governor and the lieutenant governor, and I think we are going to see the video.
New York State now has more schools being investigated for sexual assault than any state in the nation.
Last year, all 64 SUNY campuses said enough is enough and adopted a first-of-its-kind sexual assault prevention policy.
But thousands of students still aren't protected.
And they won't be until we make
all college campuses
safe for students.
Enough is enough.
Enough is enough.
We need to do more.
So New York is leading the fight against sexual violence.
No one,
especially the victim,
should be punished for reporting a sexual assault.
Sexual assault should not be hidden behind campus doors.
Victims should be able to report a sexual assault to any law enforcement, including the New York State Police.
Enough is enough.
Enough is enough.
We need to show students that no matter which college or university they attend,
they'll be supported,
they'll be respected,
that they are never alone.
Enough is enough.
Enough is enough.
Enough is enough. It's time to make all New York State college campuses safe. Our students deserve better.
Treat it as the crime that it is. It's working on SUNY. It has been working on SUNY. We want to make it a law that covers every college in the state of New York, and we want to be the first state to do that. Nice job, really nice job. You know, let's talk about this a little bit because I want you all to be comfortable with it. It is a sensitive topic. Any of these, like most of these social issues, you know, it's the marriage equality was a sensitive topic, gun control is a sensitive topic, the women's equality rights are sensitive topics. This is a sensitive topic. So people tend to shy away from the conversation, and that then becomes part of the problem, because you're never going to solve a problem you're unwilling to admit. And it's the problems that society is unwilling to confront and admit that tend to fester the longest. And it's complicated. As you heard from the Chancellor and the Superintendent and Chris Quinn, part of it is the amnesty provision on campus. Very often the witnesses were at a party where there was alcohol, the witnesses may have violated some curfew, et cetera, so they're afraid to come forward. But primarily to me, the incentive, especially for private schools, is to handle the matter internally. Why? Because the university doesn't want the publicity in the newspaper of a rape, et cetera. It's not good. It's not good news. It's not positive for the reputation of the school, et cetera. So all the incentives are to handle it internally, as an academic matter, as a campus matter. And the campus security will do the investigation. The school will convene a panel of professors, and they'll talk to the woman and they'll talk to the man. It comes out to be a he said, she said. The woman feels that going through the process on the campus, a lot of people are going to find out, and she'll be embarrassed. So the primary benefit to me is you have a right to go to law enforcement. You can go to the town police, the city police, the county police, or the state police. It is not a campus matter. It is not an academic matter. If the woman is accusing the perpetrator of a possible crime, that's a criminal matter. By the way, in the research, they believe the number is going up, and a very small number of men are committing the rapes, but they're committing multiple rapes. The recidivism rate is very high because they're not being stopped the first time or the second time. That's why turning it over to law enforcement is so important. And turning it over to law enforcement is very often the best way for the victim to handle it, because now it's off campus, you don't have to go through the campus infrastructure, and you just talk to police and they can handle it with sensitivity. But it's not new, it's been growing, it's been festering, but just talking about it is part of the solution here. And just airing it and voicing it and saying to women who have been a victim of a sexual assault, you didn't do anything wrong. There's nothing for you to hide. You were a victim. And there's nothing wrong, and you should be encouraged to come forward and exert your rights. And that's what we're really talking about here. SUNY has done an extraordinary job. So when people say, well, it's hard, I don't know, but again, SUNY is a very large laboratory, and they've done a great job at it. Not easy, because it is a cultural shift, but it shows what can be done. And then I agree with Chris. We do this, then I really believe you'll see other states get in line. Anyway, questions, comments, what do we think?
Actually, I have a question, Gordon. First of all, thank you for bringing such passion and determination to this issue. It's really, that shows, and we're all going to benefit from that. And everyone involved in this, the chancellor and superintendent and Chris, we did talk to a lot of girls this summer. And we walked away with just a commitment saying, we're not going to leave you out there. We're going to continue working on this. So I appreciate all the follow-through that's occurred. It wasn't just talk, it was a lot of follow-through. But I have a question for the chancellor. Given your experience, and I commend you for what you've achieved in such an amazingly short time, given your experience with the SUNY campuses, how do you see this working among the privates, the universities and colleges in the state? Do you see a difference, and how can they work on that?
Well, first of all, thank you, Lieutenant Governor, for your advocacy and awareness raising and the mileage you put on a car around the state. This is really, really going to help us a lot. Well, I think the thing that we have to consider first is that SUNY is so varied in the size of the campuses, so the size of the communities in which our campuses reside. So we probably have an example of everything that could be paired up with any one of the private colleges across the state, just because of our variability, the variability of our programs, the kind of students we recruit. And you know, we're everywhere from Long Island to New York City to Buffalo to Plattsburgh. I mean, think about it, and think about our size and variability. So what I would certainly want to volunteer in this session and hope to carry through is our willingness to be a partner with the independent colleges, so that we can take our lessons learned. Everything that we have is documented. Our transparency is real. The webinars and the kinds of things we used on our campuses, we would gladly share with our private colleges. And, you know, they have an organized structure. They meet on a regular basis. There's a way to pair up the way we treated this across our 64 campus with their numerous campuses in the private sector. So we are all in, and we are willing to help. And I think that'll be recorded and documented, and so you'll have to hold me to it.
Thank you.
Roanne?
Governor, can I ask a question? I'm really supportive of this. Is a great program, but Superintendent D'Amico, how are you working with the local law enforcement and the public safety agencies, I guess, on both the private and the public sector campuses? Because sometimes, you know, how is that interaction going to work with the public safety agencies, the locals?
I mean, every day we work with our local partners, whether they be the county sheriffs, the towns, or the SUNY police in keeping New York safe and responding to college campuses. I think what this does is it kind of formalizes and reinforces the partnership we already have. We're doing it on SUNY campuses, now we'll take it to the private campuses. Right now, if you're on a private campus and you call 911 because you're the victim of a crime or victim of a sexual assault, you know, your 911 call goes a multitude of places. It could go to public safety, it could go to local police, it could go to the state police. I think it's important, as the governor said, that people aren't embarrassed to deal with the locals or campus police or anything like that, and they should have the option to go where they want and feel safe and secure in reporting it and pursuing it. So I think that we bring a lot to the table. I think our partners do. I think the men and women of state police have tremendous amount of expertise and professionalism, and I think we'll be a tremendous resource to our local partners in combating these crimes.
So you'll extend some training, or?
We do that now. We share resources and personnel, training opportunities. We train together all the time. We provide, we receive, and we'll continue to do that. So.
Thank you.
Anything else? Nope? Okay. Again, great job on all. Let's give them a round of applause for really. Another topic we want to talk about briefly today, just as an introduction. We talk a lot about education, obviously, on a lot of fronts, and we talk a lot about early education. Anyone who reviews the data or the information at all will say the earlier you get a child into education, the better. That the young minds are the minds that have the greatest capacity for growth, et cetera. We're in the middle of universal pre-K for 4-year-olds, implementing that statewide. We started that 3 years ago, first as a demonstration. We're now coming up to scale, and we're not going to stop until we have universal pre-K statewide. Simultaneously, we are starting universal pre-K for 3-year-olds, okay? So we want to have it for all 4-year-olds. We also are designing it for 3-year-olds. No state has universal pre-K for 3-year-olds to the best of our knowledge. So it would really bring New York to the forefront. Now, what does pre-K for 3-year-olds look like? Why? What can you do with a 3-year-old mind? What is the difference between pre-K for 3-year-olds and 3-year-olds who don't have that experience? This is all very interesting. I think as we go forward as a state, the more we can do in this space, the better. And it's a real place where government can actually make a difference and government policies can make a difference. So educating ourselves about this is very important. And we have today with us Sherry Cleary, who is was kind enough to spend some time. She heads up our advisory board, and she's going to give us some information that I think you'll find interesting on it. Sherry?
Thank you, Governor. So first, I'll start out by thanking you. It's really powerful that we have somebody at the head of the state that has such a deep commitment to our youngest citizens and their families. Anybody who's had a young child knows how hard this work is, and parents deserve partners. And so you're the first partner, the big partner. And it's a privilege to be with all of you this morning. Thank you. So we know that early learning is critical to starting children on a path to success. This is not just rhetoric. We've got lots of research. We have great data, and we have great experiences that show that when we really put our resources into our youngest children, there are all kinds of rewards. Children who participate in high quality, and I'm going to emphasize that, who participate in really high quality early education clearly have higher cognitive test scores. They do have higher math and reading achievement scores. They and I'll also say they have great executive function. And those of you that do these jobs that you do every day know that executive function skills are really important. Negotiating, perseverance, problem solving. Early childhood is known to capitalize on a child's already highly developed ability to do these things. Early childhood further develops this. Higher likelihood of children not only graduating high school, but of attending four-year colleges. And higher likelihood of being gainfully employed later in life, which just, by the way, means more taxpayers for New York. And these are some of the things that we consider long-term investment strategies. We often talk about long-term return on investment. But I want to add that there's immediate and midterm return on investment. So there is a reward for doing this that we see almost immediately. I'll give you two quick examples. We know that in New York we have lots of children that get referred to special education very early in life. We know that early childhood education, when it's done right, helps mitigate the number of children that need to be in special ed, and it also shortens the amount of time they need these special ed services. That's a big cost savings, but more importantly, it's great for kids. And we also know that high quality early childhood mitigates the number of grade retentions, and you, I'm sure, all will find it stunning that children are left back in kindergarten and in first grade and in second grade. And that has a huge economic disadvantage for us in New York, but it also is a predictor of high school dropout. If you've been retained in school, you become the bigger kid, you become uncomfortable, there's stigma attached, and this starts as early as kindergarten and first grade. We can mitigate that. So we have a governor who made a historic commitment to funding early childhood education. Right now, the state is spending more than $750 million for pre-K for 4-year-olds. This funds 116,000 children across New York State, and it's significant. It's a big deal. This year's budget continues a commitment that the governor made over 5 years to put $1.5 billion into pre-K for 4-year-olds. I can honestly say, given that I traveled the country, we are the envy of lots of other states. This was a big, bold move, and people keep wondering how we did it. I always say, I don't know and I don't care. We did it, and it's great. It's not my problem, somebody else's problem. So it's really good news, and we're running with it. So we have data that we need to pay attention to, and that data tells us that the benefits of early childhood education is equally and in fact more important, and we want to be careful, we want to be on the cutting edge, we want to be paying attention. This is my all-time favorite slide, and it really shows many years of brain research. So I want to say that you probably understand that we have research, and it takes a long time for the research to become applied and to become a reality in policy and practice. So we have all this research on brain development that tells us that in the very first year of life, these sensory pathways, the way children see, the way they hear, and the way they process these sensory inputs is well developed in the first year. So there's a lot of stuff going on. Second to that, language development in the first and the second year peaks at those points. And then, and then in the third year, we see that higher cognitive function is at its all-time peak. So that can either thrill you or frighten you, depending on where you're sitting these days. I have to say that, I'm into kids and this is my world. Being with a 3-year-old is probably the most pleasant experience you can have. They are delicate and sweet, and they are smart, and they are analytical, and they look at stuff in ways that you've forgotten how to look. And in New York and everywhere else, we want to capitalize on this. We want to make something happen when we know what we now know about the science. Here's just another slide that talks to you about the critical nature of not only focusing on 3-year-olds, but on focusing on 3-year-olds who are poor, who come from poor families, who are in at-risk communities. This achievement gap that we are struggling to fix happens early. This is not something that happens in 3rd grade. We see it in 3rd grade because we test in 3rd grade. But we know for a fact, which means we have to do something about it. There's a moral imperative to pay attention to it. We see that by 3 years, children coming from families who are stressed, where parents are working 2 jobs and therefore not readily available to their children in a social way, have less than half the number of words than a child from a privileged or a middle class or upper middle class home. This is on us. We have to fix it. And the research tells us that if we wait too long, if we wait into the 4th and 5th year, we can't catch up. We can catch up if we start in the early years. We can make up the difference by really putting children into rich, stimulating, exciting environments with well-trained teachers and great leadership. So this is a big wake-up call for us, and we know this to be the science, so it begs a policy and a practice change. The earlier in life children can participate, the better, but we have to figure out ways to make that happen. It's one thing to talk about it, it's another to do it. There. So in this new year that we're looking at, the governor has graciously added $25 million to an already substantial pre-K investment to create programs for 3-year-olds in our highest need communities. And there's a commitment to provide half-day and full day, depending on what families need, and that's equally as significant. More than 250 districts will be eligible to apply. We're going to be looking for districts that already have 4-year-old pre-K so that we can build on this continuum of high-quality early childhood that we've initiated. And it means that we'll probably be able to serve up to 5,000 or slightly more than 5,000 children. That's a good start. That's a significant beginning.
Well done. Thank you very much. Let's give Sherry a round of applause. What I'm also hoping for is, since we're really going to be cutting a new path here as a state, that these initial programs will actually do some R&D about what is the best program for a 3-year-old. And how do you actually maximize the time, because no one really has been here before. But there's no doubt, as Sherry made clear, the benefits are just amazing. Peaked at 3 years old. I know I did. The last announcement, we have the Winter Adirondack Challenge, Sunday, March 8th at Lake Placid. For those newbies who are here, I have never said these things are mandatory attendance, but if you don't come, you are a big wimp. I want you to know that. This is very cool. It's part of our tourism effort. And the subliminal message is, come see upstate New York. You know, New York City gets 50 million tourists per year. And they come to New York City, they come to downstate, they see New York City, they see a beautiful city, but they only see one dimension of this state, especially this time of year. Even to the people in New York City, you're thinking of where to go for a weekend, et cetera, just go north. You know, New York City, they're oriented east and west, right? Go north, think north. And that's what this is about. And it's also a lot of fun. We had the Lieutenant Governor out, we gave her official orientation out at the Tug Hill Plateau. Tug Hill Plateau, we landed, it was something like minus 13 on the Tug Hill Plateau. This is before we got on the snowmobiles. But she was one tough cookie. I will tell you, we could not lose her. We couldn't shake her. Not that we were trying. Not that we were trying.
What's that all about? Where you going with that one?
But we were not slowing down for her either, I want you to know.
Yeah, I was passing people. I was passing everybody.
And she was a great sport. So if you can make it, it's a weekend, you want to bring your kids, it is a lot of fun. And there's a whole host of different activities. You can go hiking, you can go snow skiing, you can go snowmobiling, you can just hang around the lodge. I mean, it really is just a beautiful part of the state. And people are very appreciative that we come up, so if you can make it, that would be great.